Welcome back to Chasing Rank. It is Damo, and today we're going through my team selection for game week number 1. I've got some beautiful screenshots here to show you before we get into my draft to explain some of the decisions that I've made. My team is fairly locked. I have only 2 positions that I'm questioning, and it's a great position to be in coming towards the start of the season. I want to say a big thank you to all of you that are watching because the engagement has yet again gone through the roof on the channel. We picked up some more subscribers in our live stream yesterday, and you can check that out on the live section under the YouTube banner. We went through quite a number of drafts, did Dom, Paul, and I, and provided a lot of feedback back to the community. So if you want to be part of it, you want to help chase your rank, definitely subscribe, like the videos, leave comments, and really help us engage with you, the viewer. Let's get into what I want to discuss very quickly, which is a few screenshots about preseason. Reinders looks nailed to start the season for Manchester City. Rodri is out to game week 3, and in his last friend against Palermo, got 2 goals and played 45 minutes in a more advanced 8 to 10 role. I think personally he's going to be nailed, but he's going to play a little bit deeper for Man City. But to have a starting Man City midfielder away to Wolves on the opening day for $5.5 million seems absolutely crazy to go without. I think there's high upside, he's low ownership. If it goes wrong, so be it. But if it goes right and he does well, his value is going to fly, and I think he's fantastic to pick up. My next one is the ultimate defender rotation, as you can see here, which is Murillo, Van Dijk, Tarkowski, Anderson, Lerox, and Van de Ven. I don't think these guys are nailed, but what I will say is if you're looking for a set of rotations with one midfielder and the rest being defenders, that is the best one to go for. So feel free to go and take a snapshot of that one there. I do think a Palace and a Spurs defender pair up very well, and I think going for an Everton centre-back by the name of Tarkowski is almost nearly essential in your drafts moving towards pre-season. I also want to talk about the Everton midfield because this is going to change a lot of people's views. NDA was the most popular player in pre-season from Everton, nailed on him with penalties, and I still think he should be the best option. However, Grealish has just signed. We know what he did at Villa, and he could be the player with the biggest upside. Also, Drewby Hall did sign recently as well, played in the last friendly, played nearly 90 minutes, played in the 10, and took all corners. If he's nailed on at 5 million playing in the 10, which I think he is and will start game week 1, he may be the best option as an enabler. Next on the list is Dubravka and Mark Gui. Mainly put, both have yellow flags. Dubravka has not played in preseason, and he looks like he's not going to be able to start game week 1. And Gui has played no minutes in preseason and will not start game week 1 or game week 2. For those planning bench boosts like I was in game week 2, this does not look like a viable strategy anymore. So it may mean to change your ideas now ahead of your team selection and maybe look to pivot to a no bench boost sort of plan and just do it in a week where it all looks good and people are starting. The 3 most owned players in the game are now Cole Palmer, Joe Pedro, and Mohamed Salah, who's actually seen his overall ownership drop significantly after the Community Shield. I believe all 3 players, though, are absolutely essential and should be in your Game Week 1 drafts. I think Mohamed Salah will be the best fantasy asset, as he has been in the last 5 or 6 seasons. How many times he's had one poor game week, everyone freaks out, and the next week he goes scores a hat-trick. Bournemouth's defence looks weak, and I think he's the best captain for Game Week 1 and the best asset overall in the game. Cole Palmer deserves to be the highest ranking player in the game, though. At 10.5 mil, he feels underpriced. He's absolutely nailed. I expect a lot of points and a bit better of a season than he had towards the end of last year. Joao Pedro is an interesting one, but whenever someone's over 54% ownership, you really have to go and get him in your team. Because if you don't start with Pedro, you go with a different option, and he goes bang, you're going to be behind the 8 ball. I think it's easier to start with a player like this and pivot away than to start without him, panic, realize everyone else has got his points, bring him in, and now you're playing catch up to the rest. I think it's much easier to start with these 3 guys in your team, and if one of them goes down injured or they just look out of form or out of place and not getting the minutes that you think they're going to get, then it's easier to pivot away from them than trying to get them in if they're doing really well. I wanted to speak about James Tarkowski in particular. He has become the most nailed-on lock defender in my team. Against Roma yesterday, he had 2 tackles, 2 blocks, 5 clearances, 2 interceptions, which was 11 DC contributions. That's an extra 2 points. He conceded, and they lost 1-0. He would have still got 4 points, which is a return, basically, in FPL measures. This is why the game is changing and why defenders like this are worth more. He, in a game where he conceded, still would have got 4 points, which means his floor, in terms of what he can score, is really, really high. This means a lot of the time, even if he concedes, he's still going to get you good points. And then the games where he keeps a clean sheet, he's going to get you great points. The games that get you a clean sheet and a bonus point, wonderful points. And there will be a game this season where he scores from a corner or from outside the box again like he did against Liverpool and kept defensive contributions and keep a clean sheet. He's going to be on for a 12 to 13 pointer. I think players like this are worth their weight in gold, and as such, I think you must have them on in your team. That brings us on to the Fantasy Football Hub side, and we'll get into that in just a second, and we'll cut in to the fixture ticker and then my draft. Into the team we go, but we're going to start with Neco Williams and Forest in particular. I mentioned that Forest look pretty good and they have good fixtures, and they're on that screenshot I showed earlier. However, the rumours keep persisting that Tsimikas is going to go from Liverpool to Forest, and I think he'll be the nailed-on left-back. Leif Davies looks like he's coming in for rotation options, and then it's between Neco or Aina for the right-hand side spot. You may get Neco for the first few game weeks, but he might become a minutes risk, and everyone's going to be looking to wildcard in game week 7 or game week 13 for fixture swings. So with that said, do you want to start with an option that may be a minutes risk due to the transfers that may happen in real life? I don't think you can, but I will say that Forest still look really good defensively, and having a defensive option for Forest is definitely very viable. However, I'm going to explain why I have not gone with that with my current draft. My team is as such. It's a 96% game week, 96% team rating with 93 game week rating, and it's Sanchez in goals with Pedro Porro, Diouf, Tarkowski, Salah, Palmer, Bruno, Reinders, Anderson, Watkins, and Pedro. The bench of Dubravka, Munoz, Estevi, and Mark Guiu. The reason why I've not gone for Milenkovic is Murillo will outscore him with defensive contributions. The reason I haven't gone for Murillo is I can't find the extra million to go from Diouf to Murillo. And I haven't gone for Neco because of these transfer rumours. I think the better play is go for the 5.5s that you think will be the highest scoring in the game. I believe that Tarkowski has the potential to be the highest scoring defender in the game, but I don't think he will be. I think it'll be either Pedro Porro or Munoz, and let me explain why. With Maddison out injured, Porro will take all set pieces. He achieved defensive contributions in the last 2 games Spurs had. Thomas Frank's a better manager than Ange, even though I love Ange all to bits. And quite lastly, they have better defensive options this season in the midfield with Paldinia. With that being said, this all equals to Porro getting roots for points for attacking returns and defensive contributions. And with the early fixtures that they have, which is Burnley on the opening day, City, which I can bench him in, which I'll show you at the end of this draft, Bournemouth, West Ham, Brighton, Wolves, and Leeds. Those fixtures from game week 3, to me, spell goals for Spurs, and he'll be absolutely linking up play, getting attacking returns, as well as some clean sheets throughout this. I think he'd be fantastic, and I think he's going to have a much better season than he had last year under Ange. Munoz, I think, personally will be the highest scoring defender in the game now that trend is gone, because he plays right wing for Palace. In the Community Shield, he got the defensive contributions. He got 9. He got the highest in the game, so he missed out by 1. He's also a fantastic option because if you have to play him in any game week, even against Liverpool at home, you expect him to probably get on the score sheet with an assist or a goal. He got 10 attacking returns in the season last year, and I don't expect that to go up this season with a fully fit preseason and with more minutes. With that being said, he's going to be very good for defensive contributions because of how high he is. He gets a lot of recoveries. He gets a lot of interceptions, and I really think Munoz is going to be the highest scoring defender in the game. So this means to me, yes, I can't go for a Forest defender with this draft, but what I can do is monitor Forest to see how they go with European football and what happens with their signings. If they look fantastic, I can pivot one of these 5.5 to Murillo, Milenkovic, or Neco, or one of their new signings if they're absolutely nailed. What it also means is I don't have a 6 mil defensive asset, but I think the difference between the 5.5s and the 6 mils is very, very, very small. I think there's a case to have one of the 6 mils just to cover off the price point, but I think one of these 5.5s will likely be the highest scoring defender in the game. And if that's the game that we're trying to play, is get the most amount of points, then this sort of setup kind of covers that. Diouf for me is the best 4.5 million asset because of how aggressive and how attacking he is. He's basically played left wing for West Ham all preseason. He's got a great left foot, he's got a great opening fixture, and as we go through the game weeks to game week 5, you'll see that I will be able to bench him for quite a lot of game weeks and use him in some really good fixtures. The midfield hasn't really changed for me. Salah, Palmer, Bruno, and Anderson have all been locked. I even said on the live stream last night, Bruno, because of defensive contributions, Sesko, Cunha, and Mbeumo in front of him finishing chances, and what he does as well creatively. I don't see where he scores less than 200 points this season. For 9 million, I think he'll be the best pound per points player for the season. Reinders comes in because a 5.5 million asset, as mentioned, is just too good to pass down from City. And if I don't go for Neco Williams, it gives me the 0.5 million to go from Drewsbury Hall to Reinders. If I go back to Neco Williams, Reinders will have to go back to Drewsbury Hall. I just think Diouf and Reinders are a much more fun pick and is a much more exciting pick for Game Week 1. Also think longer term, Reinders will play alongside Rodri and be the more aggressive of the two midfielders. And with that being said, we've got a 5.5 million starting Man City midfielder. Yes, I want a piece of that long term. Because of that ownership, his price will rise. Watkins has been the most informed striker in preseason by Mateta. But for 9 million in their opening fixtures, I expect Watkins to bag a lot of goals. I think he's going to be the highest scoring forward in the game this season. Pedro, for me, is the must-own because of ownership, but also the first 3 fixtures are really good. It's Palace at home, West Ham away, and Fulham at home, and Brentford have looked a little bit all of sorts, and the first 4 game weeks is pretty good. You then get Man United, Brighton, before you get into Liverpool in game week 7. By this stage, Palace have had a big fixture swing, and main reason why I have Munoz, and at this point, we can always pivot to Mateta. I believe that he's going to outscore the 10 goals, 6 assists, and be pretty nailed on the start for Chelsea, but he may not get to 90 minutes. He may only play 70, but I think a Joe Pedro at 70 minutes in a good Chelsea side is going to outperform his Brighton potential that he had last season. On the bench, Dubravka, as mentioned, best 4.0. Munoz, fantastic. Obviously, I'm going to play him in quite a number of game weeks. Estevi as 4.0 is the best defender that we are going to get. He was Burnley's best player last season. He's the best 4.0 you're going to have. You can play him in a lot of game weeks, and I actually plan on playing him as a playing 5th defender. I think the fact that we get defensive contributions now, these 4.0 assets are really good to have. And part of my thinking for my Game Week 13 draft is a couple of weeks of having a few 4.0s in my team. Mark Guiri has not had a great pre-season, and as such, the bench boost for me in Game Week 2 is now dead. If you look in Game Week 2, I can play a back 3 of Munoz, Tarkowski, and Estevi with Dubravka in goal. And in Game Week 3, I get Tarkowski, Porro, and Munoz for a very aggressive back 3, where one's a defensive contributions monster and 2 really high bombing on fullbacks against Bournemouth at home, who do not have the greatest defence at the moment, and Aston Villa away, who I think it will be an open game between them and between Watkins. This is why defensive contributions are great, because even if Watkins scores against Munoz, Munoz is going to still have the opportunity to get 2 points for defensive contributions, and do we not want to forget that he is a right winger basically for Palace and could get a goal and assist. As you can see, the midfield 5 and the front 2 are just so locked that you're just able to get the transfers banked up because you don't need to make a change. In Game Week 4, you get Sunderland, Villa, and West Ham, and if I really wanted to, I could play Diouf against Spurs if I wanted. And in Game Week 5, the week before I would play the free hit in Game Week 6 to target Man City, you get Palace, West Ham, and Forest. Or I could play Porro against Brighton. The midfield 5 does not change. Watkins and Joe Pedro is pretty good. And if by this stage Reinders is not first choice or there's a bit of pep roulette, we're still going to have Drewsbury Hall, who's at a cheaper option at 5 million, that I can move to in order to still have a playing 5th midfielder. I think this structure provides a really good, stable set to get to your 5 free transfers. I think it's a structure that allows for enough attacking ability, but with good defensive contributions. And it's just a nailed-on set of 5 midfielders that 4 out of the 5 are going to play each game week, with Anderson getting a lot of defensive contribution points and covering some of the Forest clean sheet ability, and Reinders, who could be the best 5.5 mil asset because he's starting for City. With that being said, that is my team. Let me know in the comment section, would you go Diouf and Reinders, or would you go for the Neco and the Drewsbury Hall pick, locking up a Forest defender? Let me know what your strategy is looking like with your wildcard free hit and bench boost. But because of Dubravka and Guiri, I've now got no plans for the bench boost. I now have got a free hit 6 in mind with this exact team, and I'm more than likely going to wildcard in Game Week 13 with 2 4.0 options to allow me to get Salah and Haaland before I then transfer Salah out in Game Week 15 when he goes for AFCON and we get the 5 free transfers and I can reshape my team again. With that being said, that is Damo and that is my team selection for Game Week 1. I am virtually locked outside of 2 spots. It's a great position to be in, and thank you for seeing this video. Until next time, from me, it's going to be a goodbye. But a big thank you to you, the viewer, yet again for the engagement on the channel. And I really want to say, get in the live streams every Tuesday, 8 p.m. Australian Central Standard Time, because we'll go through your drafts and give you some good feedback to help you chase that rank.